What's up, guys? Yesterday I did forget to say congratulations to the Florida Panthers for winning the Stanley Cup, even though I do not want to congratulate them. Yesterday, my baseball, I'll just say the line again. The slump continues. This is getting pretty bad. We got to turn this around. I should not have played the over in the Texas game. Let's move on to today. I'm playing 3 baseball sides. I will mention quickly that we do have 2 pitchers making their major league debuts today. I'm not playing either of these games. That's San Francisco's Hayden Birdsong and Miami's Valente Belotso. Belotso is a Mexican pitcher who is a lefty, so it is possible that Kansas City struggles against him early on, but his minor league numbers aren't really that good. He does have a 4-pitch arsenal, but I don't know how good he really is. He throws a sinker. It seems like it's one of his better pitches, a couple of breaking balls, and obviously a fastball, but I don't think he has that great velocity. So I don't really trust him. I don't think he's one of their better he might be one of their better prospects. It's just that Miami's organization isn't very good. I don't like that. He's up against Brady Singer, who I actually think has bad numbers against Miami, though. So I'm just not going to play that game. I'm going to ignore it. And then Hayden Birdsong is the better of the 2 of the starting pitchers. He's been pitching pretty well, except for his most recent stint in AAA. But I don't know if there's much you can take away from his AAA stint, because I think he only has 9 innings in AAA. So this season across AA and AAA, he does have good numbers, high strikeout rate, but he is wild. That's the problem. He walks too many guys. In AAA, I think he walked 6 guys in 9 innings or something. So that's something to keep an eye on. That's not great either, but his strikeout rate is high. He throws mid-90s, I think, on the fastball. I guess has pretty good break on his curveball and does have an okay slider as well, I guess. But we'll move on to the plays that I'm actually going to be on. I'm on 3 sides here. Number 1 is going to be to take the Seattle Mariners. They're trying to avoid a sweep here against Tampa. Tampa is now up to 500, winning both of the first 2 games of the series. I like teams that are trying to avoid a sweep, although Tampa doesn't have a big opponent up next. They just have Washington, but I still think Tampa could get a little bit complacent, especially after winning 11-3 yesterday. I think we might see this swing back the other way. The Mariners didn't really use their bullpen that much. They used a couple of guys who are kind of more in long relief roles, I guess I would say, to finish out some innings. Whereas Tampa used a couple of their better relievers, I would say, than Seattle did. So bullpen situation, I think maybe a little bit of a wash, although maybe Seattle's bullpen just in general is a little bit better. But I like the full game play when you're playing on a team to avoid the sweep, though. So that's what we're doing with Seattle, because Tampa might get a bit complacent, and I like the starting pitching matchup. This is actually the first game up on the card at noon, as this is getaway day, basically, where some of these teams are ending series. So they get to play earlier in the day in a lot of cases and then get out of town and get on the road. George Kirby is pitching for Seattle. He's one of their better starters, 3.47 ERA this year, .99 whip. He's been good. His strikeout walk rate is ludicrous, 89-9 strikeout walk ratio. That's completely insane. He has one of the lowest walk rates in baseball, and he's also only allowed 83 hits in 93 1/3 innings. So there's nothing to really dislike about his stats other than that his strikeout rate isn't as high as some of the better strikeout pitchers. But he also goes pretty deep into games. They let him throw 90-something pitches around that typically. He's been continuing pitching pretty well in the month of June, 24-3 strikeout walk ratio, 19 hits allowed in 25 innings. He's just continuing all of that. And versus Tampa Bay, they've struggled to hit him as well, so his numbers continue to look good in all these different ways. Tampa Bay is only 6 for 44 off him with 3 doubles, no home runs, no triples, 2 RBIs, a 15-3 strikeout walk ratio. So Tampa, their hitters have a very weak 136 batting average and 396 OPS off of Kirby. So that's all good. So I like Kirby. Ryan Pepio is pitching for Tampa, and he is good, but I think Kirby is the better of the 2 options here, the better way to go. Pepio is a 4.61 ERA this year, which admittedly is misleading because he has a 1.13 whip. So he's pitched better than that. 75-23 strikeout walk ratio is pretty good, although it's not it's not anything like what George Kirby has put up, but still pretty good, and a high strikeout rate in 66 and a third innings and only allowing 52 hits. So Pepio has indeed been pretty good, but he's gotten less deep into games than Kirby has. He's throwing fewer pitches in a lot of cases, and he's not going that deep into games. In his last 2 games, he went 4 2/3, but it was against Atlanta, so give him a pass there. Maybe Atlanta's good. But then he also struggled coming out of that against Pittsburgh, only going 3 1/3. And across those 2 starts, he walked 7 batters. So recent form has not been the best for Pepio. So I think Seattle's got the advantage here starting pitch-up-wise. Pepio, I mean, he hasn't really been seen by Seattle, so maybe you'd say, well, that could be an advantage for him, which, yeah, in a way it is, because a lot of these hitters haven't seen him before, so they're not going to know what to expect. But Seattle's hitters who have seen him, which only are 2 of their hitters, but they're 2 for 5 off him with a home run, 3 RBIs, 2 walks, no strikeouts. That's a 400 average, obviously, and 1,571 OPS. Of course, it's only a sample size of 5 at bats, so you can't really take that much away from it, but I think George Kirby is the way to go in that one. The market seems to agree with that, even though Seattle's a bit public because they have the better record. They're up from -110 to -114, 72% of the tickets, but 81% of the cash. So I think we are seeing more of the cash come in on Seattle and the line moving up on Seattle. So that is what I'm going to do. I think you can get Seattle at what can you get them at right now? -115 looks like it's the best you can do. So we'll do that one. And then next up, New York Yankees. I like the Yankees against the Mets, man. The Mets won yesterday, and that's a big win. The Mets were hot and then cooled off a little bit. The Rangers were able to beat them. Then the Mets were able to turn it around again, win 2 out of 3 against the Cubs. Now they came into the series. They returned home to face the Yankees and actually won yesterday in Game 1. But the Mets used a bit of their relief staff, I think a little bit more than what the Yankees did, in a way, because I think the Mets used some of their better relievers, whereas the Yankees didn't use as many of their better relievers, even though both teams used 4 relief pitchers. Mets did use Nunez to kind of eat up some innings after Peterson struggled and didn't go deep into the game. Peterson and Cole both struggled in the game yesterday, but the Yankees are the better team, man, as the odds makers are telling you. Now I think they're in bounce-back mode after the Mets took care of business and beat them. So that's why one of the reasons I'm going to go full game here, but also because the Yankees are such a heavy favorite that I think it makes sense to either play them on the run line or split run line and money line here. Yankees are up from -140 to -144, so kind of similar to Seattle in a way. They've moved up a bit, but the Yankees do look like they're public and have less of the cash, but we do see the line moving up on them. So those are kind of conflicting indicators. I don't love these public road favorites, but I'm still doing it here in these situations. Yankees have 87% of tickets, but 82% of the cash. So I don't like that the Yankees are this public, but I think it is the spot to take them. And I like the starting pitching matchup. And I think the bullpens are really kind of a wash as far as their usage yesterday, but I think the Yankees have the better of the 2 bullpens, and a lot of their better relievers weren't used yesterday. So even though the Yankees do have less of the cash than the tickets as it stands right now, that might not wind up being the case either. They do have the money line moving up on them, and I like this, man. This is Luis Gil is pitching for the Yankees. I know I went on him in his last game, and he had like maybe the worst start of his career. He does walk too many guys, way too many guys, really. He's got a 97-41 strikeout walk ratio. So his walk number is incredibly high, but 97 strikeouts and 81 1/3 is also a crazy high strikeout rate. And he only allows 47 hits. So even though he's insanely wild, he's also really, really difficult to hit. So it's like that's the trade-off there. And his most recent start, though, this is why I kind of like this. I think he's in bounce-back mode, man. He had thrown 100 pitches in the previous game. I probably shouldn't have taken him in the Baltimore game, to be honest, because he was coming off a start against the Red Sox where he threw over 100 pitches. He came into that Baltimore game and had an awful, awful start, allowing 8 hits, 7 earned runs, and 2 walks, putting 10 base runners on him, 1 1/3, with only 1 strikeout. I think he's going to bounce back from that, man. When you're a starter is putting up decent numbers, which he is. He's got a 2.77 ERA and 1.08 whip, despite the ridiculous amount of walks. He's coming off such an embarrassing performance. I think we're going to be in a bounce-back spot for Gil this time here. So I like this. And the New York Mets have barely seen him. Only 2 of their hitters have seen him before, and they're 1 for 4 off him. No extra base hits, no walks, no strikeouts. So it's a 250 average and 500 OPS. So there's nothing we can really take away from that. But he might have a little bit of the advantage here because these Mets hitters basically haven't seen him before. And like I said, he's really in a bounce back scenario here after having a horrific start. And like I said, when you're one of the team's better pitchers like that and you're a pretty good pitcher, you don't just like let that slide. You bounce back from such an awful start. So I think that will be the case here. Sean Manaea is on the other side of the hill here for the Mets. His stats are not that impressive this year. 4.16 ERA, 1.29 whip. His walk rate's a little bit high as well, and he's got a pretty high strikeout rate, but he's putting too many men on base. 73 strikeouts, 29 walks. He's also allowed 63 hits. So he's almost like heel light because he does have a lot of strikeouts, too many walks, and he's not allowing that many hits, but Heel's allowing fewer hits, striking out more, and allowing more walks. So Heel is like the extreme Manaea, basically. But Manaea has not done well in the month of June, man, even though he has a 26-7 strikeout walk ratio in 20 innings and allowed 19 hits. He's gone 5 2/3, 3 2/3, 5 and 5 2/3 in these starts. Granted, it's against some offenses that can hit decently in Arizona, Philly, San Diego, and Texas, but still, he has not been going deep into games. He has not been efficient with his pitches, but that's kind of always the case. He is not a very efficient pitcher typically. And, you know, he's getting up into his 30s. And then really, I think the key to this play here is not just that the Yankees are in a bounce back spot, and Heel is in a bounce back spot and hasn't really been seen by the Mets before, but Manaea has been seen by the Yankees. We have a decent sample size, and the Yankees have been able to hit him pretty well. They're 15 for 51 off him with 2 doubles, 3 home runs, 7 RBIs, 14-6 strikeout walk ratio. So still, again, too many walks for Manaea, even though the number of strikeouts is pretty good. Yankees have a 294 batting average against him and 878 OPS. So Manaea has struggled. It's maniacal, man. Manaea has struggled against the Yankees. So I'm going to play on the Yankees in this one. You can get -1.5, plus 115 right now if you want to lay the run line, even though you're laying them on the road here. It might be better to just split it because the money line's up into the -140s, -142 right now. So if you want to make like your own -1 run line, you can play the -1 run line too out there, probably at DraftKings or whatever. Probably lay like -120 or something for it. So you can play it that way too if you really want. Or you can split it across a couple of different books and lay the -1.5 plus 115 and the money line at -142 and make each one half the bet. I don't mind that either. And then the final play is going to be on Minnesota. So we're playing on 3 public road favorites. Toad, what are you doing, man? How can you be playing all these public road favorites? You typically don't want to be doing that. It's certainly not my MO, but this is just the way these starting pitching matchups work out, man, and the way the situations look. I'm going to play on the Minnesota Twins in the night game. They're up from -101 to -116 at Arizona. So the odds makers are telling you something here, man. Minnesota's been playing pretty well as of late, and the odds makers are telling you that Minnesota is the better team-ish, or they have the better of the starting pitching matchup, although the public is kind of onto it because Minnesota's been playing pretty well. They have the better record. Public is kind of off the Arizona train after they won the National League last year. Public doesn't really want anything to do with them. I don't like the Minnesota's public, to be honest. But they are up from -101 to -116, like I said. So it does look like there is some legitimate money coming in on that side, too. Even though 89% of the tickets are on that side. It's according to pregame, 98% of the cash is also on that side. So it could be one of those situations where the public and some of the professionals are all in agreement on that side on Minnesota. I also am. Arizona won the first game of the series yesterday, even though they were returning home from a trip that took them to the East Coast. They still were able to win in a bad spot, which is typically a distracted spot. They still came back and won, but Arizona, did use basically the entire back end of their bullpen to hold off Minnesota and get the save there. So some of Arizona's best relief pitchers may not be available in this one because they used them in yesterday's game. Minnesota, although I think Minnesota did actually use at least one of their better relievers as well, but they only used 2 relief pitchers to Arizona using 3 of their better relievers. Minnesota only used 2. So I think Minnesota maybe in the better bullpen spot here. And I think Arizona's bullpen just isn't really that good anyway. But then looking at the starting pitching matchup, this is where I think we get the rest of the advantage here. So all three of these plays are going to wind up being full game plays based on what I'm saying here. Simeon Woods Richardson, the rookie, is pitching for Minnesota here. He's having a good rookie season, man. A 3.26 ERA, 1.14 whip. It seems like hitters are kind of fooled by him. His strikeout walk ratio is decent, 52-17. Even though the 17 walks is a bit high, the 52 strikeouts isn't that impressive in 60 2/3, but it's not bad. It shows that he has decent command. His walk number is low enough, and he's only given up 52 hits. So he's keeping that hit count down as well. 22-8 strikeout walk ratio this month so far in June, although really the only good offense he faced was Houston, and he struggled in that game. But still, he's kind of unleashed at this point, man. They're letting him go 80s, 90s as far as his pitch count in these games. So he's like fully immersed in the starting rotation now. So I like that. And he's still managing to do pretty well. This month, those stats are in 20 2/3 innings pitched, by the way. And he's also only allowed 17 hits. So he's pitching decent recently as well. And Arizona has also never faced him before. So again, you get this rookie pitcher who's pitching decently. And he has that little bit of an extra edge there, in my opinion, because these lineups have not seen him before. And that may be part of the reason why his numbers are good this season, is that a lot of these hitters are facing him for the first time. So you may see some regression out of a guy like Woods Richardson eventually, but when he's still facing these lineups for the first time and they've never seen him before, I think he could have a bit of an advantage there as the offenses are trying to figure him out. So I think we get an advantage there. And then on the other side, Arizona's got Ryan Nelson pitching. He's been one of their worst pitchers, man. He's got a 5.18 ERA, 1.51 whip. He's putting more than 1.5 base runners on per inning. These stats that he's putting up, really not good, man. A 43-18 strikeout walk ratio, which isn't that great. That's too many walks, and it's in 64 1/3, so he's not coming in and blowing people away. He's not a strikeout guy. He's allowed 79 hits as well, so he's allowing way over 1 hit per inning. He's putting way too many men on base, man, even though he's had a couple of decent starts recently. One of them was against the White Sox. Who cares about that? He had a decent start a couple starts ago against San Francisco. I think their offense struggles as well. And he's coming off a decent start where he went 7 innings against Washington. He was really efficient, though. He only went 70 pitches, although typically he gets into the 80s and 90s pitch count-wise, but a lot of times he's inefficient with those pitches, and he only goes like around 5 innings in a lot of these games. So he doesn't go deep into some of these games, too. A lot of times he gets knocked around, puts too many men on base, gets knocked out. And versus Minnesota, we don't have a large sample size. Only 4 of their hitters have seen him before. But even though for them it was like their first time seeing him, they were not fooled by him. Let's put it that way. Minnesota's hitters are 5 for 7 off of Ryan Nelson. So it's a very limited sample size, 7 at bats, but 5 for 7 with a double, triple, home run, 5 RBIs, 1 strikeout and no walk. So it's a 714 batting average and 2,196 OPS. I mean, obviously, those stats are obviously not going to be sustainable, clearly. But still, Minnesota, their offense has been starting to click a bit. They've been pretty good, and they have not been fooled when they've seen Nelson before. So Nelson has really struggled against them. So I think we are certainly getting the better of the starting pitching matchup in that one as well. I think we are in all 3 of these games. So Seattle -115, New York Yankees -1.5 run line +115 for half the bet, split with the other half of the bet on New York Yankees money line -142, and then also Minnesota Twins minus, what's the best we can get here? -120 looks like it's unfortunately the best you can get. Wouldn't want to pay that much more than that. If it starts getting in the 130 range, you can think about splitting them run line and money line as well. All public road favorites, baby. That's really what I love doing. Let's turn it around. I mean, I'm sick of this losing. Baseball's typically been pretty good for me, man. So I'm not thrilled about this. Let's go. Let's get it done. Peace.